These will be the 3 topics of the lecture today. The delimitation, I will explain you the whole list, repeating something that we have seen, the Chinese Wall, and finally the personal intellectual right. So let's begin with the first topic. And you will remember for sure this slide in which we talk about 4 waves of human rights, following more or less a speech of Karl Vasek at the end of the last century. And he said more or less that the first wave of human rights are related more or less to the individual rights, to the liberal approach. No? I will remember this because we will do some exercising, some breakout rooms after this mention. No? And I will ask you about the limits. No? And also it will help us to see more or less the structure of this second part of the course of human rights. So we are remembering now the 4 waves of human rights. They called 4 waves. Well, and the first one was about the individual approach. No, was the bourgeoisie, the revolution against the French government, the French authorities, the king, the ancient regime, and well, it's the individual more or less against the state. Yeah, so in this first wave of human rights, we can see many of them. No? The right to life, obviously, to vote, to have some properties, to physical integrity against torture, for example, the right to marriage, more or less at that time, well, freedom of expression, yes, but well, just a nuance of the freedom of conscience. Well, this will be this was the first wave of human rights. So after that, we know that there was the discovery or the new enshrinement of some set of human rights that we call social and programmatic, more or less, rights. There, the redeemed subject were the social groups. And an example of that set of human rights could be the freedom of association, work, strike, and unemployment rights, the right to culture, more or less. There is a lot of features of these rights. No, anyone can ask, for example, well, I have the right to participate in the utilities of some company, no? As happen in many countries, because the law say, well, all the workers have a percent of the utilities in each company, 5, 10, 15% in some cases, in some countries. No? But here, anyone can ask their own right. No? It's social, yes, but I have a part, a percent, a quota there, no? In each of those social human rights. After that, many people say that there is a third wave of human rights, but with a specific characteristic. Should be more or less that all of those rights are a collective right. Many times you can only present a diffuse interest. No one can appear there as the only entitled for that, or the representative of, for example, the people who speak English, the English native speakers. No, there is no representative. All people that speak that language, or Swahili or any other, well, have the right, a common interest, but no one is the representative of the whole group. No, it's a diffuse interest, and anyone can demand, for example, for the protection of nature, of the environment, the ecosystem. So there is a diffuse interest. Anyone can sue the state, even some companies, because they are harming some of these rights. But you don't need to prove that you specifically have some violation. For example, in the rights of the consumer, you don't need to prove that, as we put the example in the other lecture, that you suffer something so wrong in your body because you drink some alcoholic drink. So this is the third wave, as you can see. The redeemed subjects are the ethnic groups, some other groups, the humanity, also in the environmental rights, and so on. Well, the competition's rights are also an example of this third wave. So, and we also spoke about a last wave, a fourth wave of human rights. That is more or less related to the digital area. There, the e-citizen are the redeemed subjects, the subjects that, or netizens also are called, the people who navigate on internet, on the digital space, in the information society. Well, and there should be many other new rights in some sense. More or less, we can also talk about not new, but a develop of the ancient rights in the new space. That, for example, are there are, for example, the right to digital existence, to privacy, but privacy in a new sense, not just the privacy of your family, of yourself. No, the privacy, some kind of privacy in the digital space, the digital identity. Yes, it's the same identity of the people, but in a new space. That's why it's more or less a develop of the old rights. The virtual address, yeah, you have always the right to have some residence, domicile, address, but now in a new space that is created in the digital era. So, after repeating very fast this lecture of the fourth wave of human rights, I will ask 3 questions, and you have to consider all of them in the breakout rooms that I will open in a few minutes, in 2 minutes. These 3 questions are the following ones. First question, how many new human rights can appear? That is the first question. More or less, I think that I asked to you in the other lecture, this one. But let's consider again deeply now, with the history that we have in our minds now, and also a very connected question is, are all rights human? What do you think? No, all rights. Let's think about in commercial law. In commercial law, can we find any kind of right that is not a human right properly, or all rights of the legal system of Kenya are human rights? And finally, a more specific question, more or less connected, related to the last one. Can some rights be directly considered a human right? I don't know if you realize that the difference between the second and the last question that is so important. No? The second question, you should say me, yes, all human rights are human, or not. This right, for example, the right of that company is not a human right. Okay? Yeah, and you have to put me an example of which right is not a human right in the second question. In the third question, I'm asking a little different thing. Can we say, for example, that this right, that, for example, all rights are human rights or not? It doesn't matter. But can I distinguish, well, these rights are more directly related to the human person, and this is not so directly human in some sense? Okay.
I could try to answer. Yes.
Yes. Very good. Try.
So on the first question on how many new human rights can appear, there was a consensus that probably there would be no other human rights that would come about, maybe just that the present rights could be expanded to cater
and you knew, wow. Okay.
Because we tried to consider, for instance, when we look at the Nelson Mandela moot question, and when they were asking about whether human rights could be attributed to robots. So we were wondering if that would be a new right or just an extension. Because in that particular question, the robots that were at the protest were shot down by the policemen. And there was an argument that was presented that this violated the rights of the owners of the robots, their human rights. So we tried to see if that would be a new right or it would just be an extension. But we didn't see any new rights. We just saw that maybe you could argue out the present rights that exist and then try and expand them.
Yeah. Well, in some sense, all rights are connected. This I can agree. But on the other sense, it seems to be that in the cyberspace, there are so many new things. For example, the right to the domain name, the name that, well, because in the past there was no cyberspace, no internet, so that name didn't exist. So in some sense, that would be a new right. Yes, connected with the right of expression, but this, well, and with identity, but it's quite different, no? Well, it's okay. Could be, yeah. Okay. Good. About the second question.
Are all rights human?
Yes, no, why?
it's sort of in between, because there are rights that go directly to, you know, the dignity of the person, but then there are other rights that aren't directly related to a person's dignity or the human person. For example, okay, the example escapes my mind. But we try to consider that, you know, under human rights, we have the cultural rights, civil, political, social, economic. So we were trying to see, do all these directly relate to the human person, or, you know, yeah. So we were kind of in between about it. But if we were to pick, we would say that all rights are human. Yeah.
All rights are human. Okay. And the rights of a company, for example?
Sort of. That was also one that we argued, because you see, companies have the right to sue and the right to be sued, but they're not actual human beings. So
It is a human right or
that's
not?
why, yeah. I don't think so.
So, okay. And the last question.
But the last question: can some rights be directly considered a human right? Yes. Yes.
Oh, well, yeah. Some rights, yes. All of them?
No.
What it means directly then?
Directly.
Yeah. Why you can say that this right is directly and this is indirectly connected with the human being, or the human, or indirectly and a human right?
I would say that some rights, it's the same argument that, like the one that we used for the second question, that some rights are directly related to the person, others are indirectly related. So like the one direct human right could be the right to life. Yeah. And then others could be indirect, such as the right to a clean environment, which doesn't go directly to the person, but it ensures that they live a proper life, because they live in a clean environment. Yeah.
Okay. Some other group. Let's talk about these questions. I don't know. Any of you? If not, I will choose. Okay, group number 2, room number 2. There were Bernice, Mary, Betty, Dixon, Elizabeth, Emma, Alma, Joel, Dina.
Hi.
Hi, Bernice. How are you?
I'm fine. So on the first question of how many, okay, most of our discussion, we agree with mostly what Effie has said. But on the first point of how many rights can appear, my group was of the view that there could be new rights that would come up, especially with the advancement of technology and, space and all that.
Yeah.
So that could be a basis for new rights to appear in the future. And then on the second question, are all rights human? So we were of the view that all rights are inherently human and they have to be related to human beings. So yes, we do understand that companies could also have rights because companies might have maybe legal personality that is different from the rest of the members of the rights. But at the end of it all, most rights are inherently human. So yeah.
But don't you remember the problems of the International Courts of Human Rights to accept as a human rights, for example, the rights of the company? I mentioned you in the last lecture that the Inter-American Human Rights Court said, well, at the very beginning, well, more or less, they used to accept human rights of the companies, but then no, not at all. They said no, and then don't you remember that discussion?
I don't remember it quite well, but okay. Now I've learned something.
You have to double check that lecture. Yeah.
Yes, I will definitely check it out. And then, so on the third question of can some rights be directly considered a human right? My group is of the view that yes, some rights can be directly considered human rights. Examples such as the right, yes?
An example, continue.
Yeah, the right to life and mostly use cogents, right? That directly affect the human person, yeah. Then we also have other rights such as rights to environment and yeah, consumer rights.
And which will affect indirectly? Which one of them will be not directly but indirectly? Bernice, can you hear me?
Excuse me, sir, you're muted. Excuse me, sir, you're muted.
Okay, finally. I have problems now with my connection, sorry. But did you hear my question? My question, Bernice, was...
No, I didn't hear it.
Okay. Which kind of right do you consider that could be indirectly?
Maybe the right, well, that's a tricky question. Maybe the right to environment. I'm not sure though.
Why? In which sense indirectly?
Okay, I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, that's... Sure. Okay, let's go to another group. I don't know which one could be. Any one of you want to try to answer these questions? If not, for example, group, well, let's go by order. Mungai, yes, don't you want?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, the first question was, how many new rights can appear? And in our discussion, we agreed that as many rights as, okay, the new rights would appear to the extent to which human beings learn something new about themselves and develop the world around them. So For example, development of technology has brought about new rights. Then we also considered LGBTQ rights, where so it's like human beings.
I will put the same question in negative. There is a limit, or anything can be a right. We can say, well, I have the right to fly as a bird, or I don't know, or any absurdity. Which will be the limit of the creation of new rights?
I think I think the limit would be in as far as it corresponds to man's dignity and man's humanity.
Yeah, well,
so you can't say that that a human being has the right to swim like a fish because a human being is not a fish.
Yeah, well, nature, well, that's the idea. Nature, yeah, the human right nature, but also the nature of things, of the river, of the, I don't know, of the mountains, of the sky, and so many things. Yes, that is a limit. We cannot go against them. And also dignity, I will say a little more, not just dignity, but also justice, well, fairness, that kind of things. Okay, let's go to the second question. Yes or no?
So we kind of qualified this question with with the second question with the third question that you asked. So instead of just asking are all rights human, we asked are all rights directly human rights. I don't know if there was room to expand the scope of the question, but we kind of pushed the envelope a bit. And in answering this question, we came to a conclusion that all rights are human in that the human in that rights exist only because human beings exist, and the rights that we currently have speak to a certain aspect of the human condition of humans humanity. So going back to your question about say company rights, that's why we qualified this question as to whether all rights are directly human rights or not, because a company is not a human person, but company rights speak to the human condition, to where humans like to come together with a common objective, with a common end. And so if humans didn't come together to form a company, then we wouldn't have company rights. So in as much as, say, company rights are not human rights, the company rights address a certain aspect of human characteristics. Another one.
It means are similar, but are not human.
Yeah, exactly. They're similar, but not human.
Well.
Then also animal rights. This one was a tricky
Animal
one.
rights. What about that?
So animal rights, we're not too sure if animal rights are recognized rights, that whether they're codified or not. But in answering whether animal rights are human rights, of course they're not. Animals are not human beings, but we took a roundabout view in answering this because we thought that the rights that we give to animals are things that a human being would like to be done unto them. So, for example, an animal has a right or a freedom from torture while it's being killed is to some extent because there's a human being who feels bad when they watch a human being killed. So they create this right so as to protect themselves from the bad feeling when they see an animal being killed in an inhumane way. And also they give these rights to animals because it's I mean basically that we don't we if we were if we were in that position we wouldn't want to be treated that way, but also because the animals themselves haven't told us that they want this rights. So in that regard, we impose those rights on them to protect them and also somewhat indirectly to protect ourselves.
Did any group consider the rights of the robots, the new era of the rights now? There are so many people trying to give some kind of rights to the robots, to the bots. For example, to the robot that paint a painting. Well, can that robot have rights or not? Yes, Ali and then Elvis, yes.
Okay, me and Elvis are in the same group and we sort of touched on that. And the reason why robots themselves have rights which are not human is because when we give them rights, we create a duty and obligation for them to protect other rights. And therefore, when you do that, you also give them a form of a legal responsibility to sort of protect rights that are within the society. And if that's the case, then having recognized them as machine systems that have the capacity to have personal rights, then it means that those are rights that are not human, but are rights that are recognized in the society to belong to machine systems that are autonomous.
Okay, and Elvis, what do you think about?
I'm actually in the same group with Ali, and that's what Ali said was actually our core argument. One other argument that came out during deliberation was the fact that for you to confer these rights and term them as human, then they have to seek to conserve the nature of humanity in itself. And therefore, for as long as the robots themselves, AI and Sophia and all these others, do not have rationality or free will or cannot even exercise that, then there's no way that indeed they can actually have rights.
That's clear. Yeah, obviously I agree with that. No,
Yes.
at the end of the day, well, well, the three things: robots, animals, and companies. I think that could be solved in the same way. When we put rights not in the human person, but in other things, a table, a thing, a name, the name of a company, or an animal, all of them are fictions. Because we cannot ask anything to the things that don't have intellect, that don't have will. Yeah. So it's just to create a name or a thing that we say we will put these rights and these duties and these obligations and this legal interest and something, but it's a fiction because behind that is always the man, the human being. So that it means so many things, as you know. It means that the whole legal system have the same ultimate aim, that is the person, that is the happiness of the person, and so on. No? So in this way, all the things that are in the law and the creation of new subjects, and when we say, well, an animal have a kind of right, it's just putting in some of them, well, things to ourselves, no, to organize earth or world, no. So, okay, I agree. And let's go to another group just for the I don't know, Georgina, for example, the room number 4. There was not there. Irene, Wanjiku, Wahame, Karaoke. Some of them of room number 4. Is there anyone? Claire, finally. So
yeah, so I was in group 4. We were with Georgina and Irene, and our deliberations were pretty much in line with what has already been said, like the questions, how many new human rights can appear. At first,
let's focus in the last one. That for me is the crucial one.
The last one, can some rights be directly considered as human rights? We said that some are. We said that when you look at the subject matter or what is most definitely related to the right, that's what gives it, that's what would be considered as directly related to it, right? But we realize that some rights, like, say, as we've been talking, rights related to robots, plant protection rights, they're not directly considered as human rights because, well, they're related to something else that's completely almost like on its own realm. But by virtue of the fact that it concerns a human interest, that's the only link that it has to humanity. If it was devoid of that interest, then technically would it even be a right to begin with? Yeah, it would be. Yeah, it's like what has been said, granting rights to robots. Yeah, and as Ali pointed, now would that mean that this robot would have a particular duty and obligation as an independent being to us, right? So can some rights be directly considered a human rights? Yeah, to some extent. Yeah.
Yeah, to some extent based on, grounded on which argument?
To some extent grounded on the argument that I need to collect my thoughts, like to answer that. I know the first time I seem to have it, but yeah.
It's not thoughts. So easy. It's not so easy. And don't you know, this is an important issue in so many courts. It's a practical problem. It's not a theoretical this problem, by the way. For example, there are so many around the world actions specifically for constitutional rights, or in the international courts of human rights, they have to decide if some rights, you can sue someone in that court because that right. I remember many judgments of the Constitutional Court saying, well, this is not a constitutional right. You can see that is the same phrase in the International Treaty of Human Rights, and the International Court of Human Rights considered that a human right, but in the Constitutional Court they say, no, here this is not a constitutional right because whatever. So we can see that there is a development of all, you can see in all rights a development, or more or less linked, connected between them, as the first answer said, no? Well, there will be no new human rights, it just develops. In some sense, yes. In some sense, I think that there will be a novelty, something new, because the space, the things, the new inventions, the discoveries, and so on will give you an opportunity to discover many rights. In some sense, new rights, not in all senses. Well, if you want to see my answer, just continue with the with the PowerPoint because it will help us to realize many things. No, what I think that was one of the first slides of the last subject of jurisprudence. For sure, you will remember the notion or the main notions of right, of law, the equal equations, just a balance between the thing that our things and the things of the others also, no? And there is also a notion of a claim right and an objective right also, no? So, but the important thing is that, no, that any right just exists here in the legal relationship, Outside of that is just a potential right, some written words in a great document that could be a great declaration, but with any efficacy, with any reflex on reality. On reality, you have only this, not the rights that are in a real legal relationship. So, and that's why when I brought the Codex Juris Naturalis, I was focused on that. And I divide the code, the first part that we have read, in the legal system, no? That more or less could be the environment of the legal relationship. This is the first part. The second part is related to the human, directly to the human. All rights directly related to the human being in itself. That is important, no? I realized it was a discovery for me. I was quite surprised when I realized that most of the human rights declaration, the core treatise of human rights, fits so well in the second part. When you will read this part, you can see in the support, well, all the connection with the human rights treaties and declarations and constitutions that side mentions some right, probably in this second part, and that's why we are reading this, no? But also we can consider the actions of the human right, of the human being, the action. Now, what the human used to do, and probably that will be a right, a duty also, a human duty, and so on. And that is the third part of the Codex Juris Naturalis, no? Natural law code. No? That part we will never read because I have to write first. That part, I have something, but not so much. Then there is some we can study the personal, interpersonal relationships. Not just the whole legal relationship, but the relation between two persons, two individuals, two men, two women. So here you will find so many rights and so many treaties of human rights, especially, for example, the treaties about the family right, children's right, all rights related to freedom of religion also, no? Is a relation with God, no? So you can consider also. And finally, there is a last relation between the persons, any of the parties of the legal relationship, with the goods, with the assets, with the things that are part of the legal relationship. And then you can find, for example, if the thing of the legal relationship is the work, all the workers' rights, no? Or if there are corporeal things, for example, you will find all the property rights that appears in so many human rights treaties, declarations, proclamations, and so on. So that is the principle. If the question was, no, remember, which kind of rights could be directly related to the human being, I will say first the rights of the second part. We will see right now in the second part which kind of rights could be directly related to the human being in itself. And second, to those of part number 3, 4, and 5, no? That are relations, no? Actions and relations with persons and with goods and with things, assets, and so on, no? Those, because one are related in some sense with the human being, and that's why I will say that all of rights are human also, no? But some of them more directly, some of them more indirectly, as we said, and you answered very well that part. So let's go to the second part, and which could be very deep related to the human being. And I will repeat one slide that for sure you will remember, no? What is the human being? Well, it's a mix of things, no? A mix of being, in the sense of act of being, existence with actuality that can activate. It's not just that we exist, but it's the act. Acts mean that can activate, that can move, can create, that have so many things. No, it means act of being is more deep than the mere existence, and also the mode of being. In the mode of being, that is the essence, we have the substantial form and the accidental form, no? The accident. And in the substantial form, we found there the soul, well, the intellect and the will, and the identity of the body also. I mean, the accents, well, the colors, the weight, the thing that we can measure and see, and so many things, no? So it is more or less the things that the human being in itself is. So as a synthesis, we can put here, no? That what is the human being in itself, no? Well, the act of being, the human soul, and the body, more or less, no? More or less, intellect and will. And we can realize that each part, each element of the act of the human being could have some properties and many rights related to those properties. So I will ask you now also a second question. It will be so easy, that's why I will not open the breakout rooms, but you have to answer me now. What kind of properties could have the act of being, the human soul, the body, properties, features, characteristics? It could have many names, the same, no? But it is the features of the body, for example, no? or the act of being. That could be a little deeper. No? Don't you know anyone? Try to think properly, because if you think, you will have not to remember for the quizzes and for the examination. You will just deduce thinking the answer. No? I will give you, yes, Ali.
I wanted you to repeat the question again because I couldn't hear it clearly from my side.
Okay. What kind of characteristics, features, or properties the act of being, or the human soul, or the body could have? Can have now, for example, let's put first an easy question. The immateriality, yes, Ali.
So in addressing the human soul, first the context is the human soul in itself is immaterial.
Immaterial, okay, good. Not the body, the human soul have that characteristic. Well, whichever.
So also the human soul is immutable. Is that a characteristic?
Which one, sorry?
The human soul is immutable. It doesn't change.
Immutable, yeah, that's another. Okay. Sharon, yes. What happened, Sharon?
No, I have second thoughts about my answer.
Well, any other characteristic?
Is it the fact that by the mere fact of existing, like as a human being, you have, I don't know, I can't remember the exact word, inalienable rights, like
yeah,
the fact that one cannot sell body parts.
Yeah, inalienable rights are based, all of them, in the stable characteristics of the human being. It means of the act of being, of the human soul, the intellect and the will, and the body also, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, but for example, the corporality, that is a characteristic of the act of being, of the human soul, or of the body. The corporality seems to be so easy, of the body, no? Well, I will give you the index of the second part of the code now. And that is the characteristic of the act of being. First one, be caused with sense. We are not the answer of ourselves, no? We have some sense. The cause of ourselves is not ourselves, is someone. Could be our parents, could be nature, could be God also, no? But we are caused, yeah. Our existence is caused, no? Principally the existence by God, no? Second, we have a unity. Unity is a deeper word. It's not just integrality, no? Of the parts, no? The body have especially integrality. But this more than that, this more. We have a deep unity, so deep that we can unify. We can unify, for example, our heritage, no, or things, or we can unite ourselves to some society or to some association, and with order. Seems to be so clear that we have some kind of order, no? The dignity is also a characteristic specifically of the act of being, of the person, of the individual. Remembering the act of being is the whole person, no? The existence of the whole person. The person is not just the intellect, is not just the will, nor the body. but especially the whole person, the whole thing that exists. That's why a characteristic is the eminent value that is called dignity. To be persistent, well, we are more than a rock, more than a stone that will probably some stones have a long life, but could be destroyed. No? The soul of the person cannot be destroyed, and that's why is also there is a new word here that Leonardo Polo, a philosopher, introduced to the Spanish and also to the English. It's not just eternal. Eternal is no end, no beginning. But he said that the human being is eternalizable. What it means, well, that we have a beginning, but always we can increase ourselves, our knowledge, our will, our virtues. It's possible to grow. He said also in heaven we will grow and develop ourselves more and more and more without end. Well, that's a theory, but in any case, to be irrepeatable, there are not two human beings equal. Equal in some sense, well, I use glasses, you too, and so many things, but not absolutely, no. Each individual is an individual, no, and is unrepeatable, innovative, over abundant. We can create many things, no. In that sense, the nature, the environment repeats also the cosmos, the same laws. The human person is not that. It's always repeating, no, it's always creating. You know? Have an interiority and intimacy also. No? We have our world inside of us. Yeah, and cats have no world, no? Because they have no intellect, cannot reflect in things or meditate in the things that they have. No, we have an maturity, people, the active thing. To be open to donate ourselves to others also is a characteristic. We will see many things to coexist. Well, it's not, it's quite deeper that, no? We need, it's not that we live with the universe, it's we coexist. We need the universe, the cosmos, we need the people. People that is alone makes no sense. No, we need family, people, society to be limited and perfectible. No? Also, well, we can improve ourselves always. No? That those one are characteristic of the act of being. Now we will see characteristic of the human soul. That probably could be easier, no? To be immaterial. That's one, just one. Second, be intelligent and rational. No, that is a characteristic of the human soul also. No? The free will. No, it's also a characteristic of the will. Of the soul, and with the will we can possess ourselves, we can possess other things, no? In a different way than the possession of a lion. We will see that, no? The lion possesses in some sense some territory, but not with the will, just with the force, the brutal force. No? Then, to have a form that defines the human identity, that identity is a characteristic of the human soul, of the substance. You can say, well, no, but my identity is also that I have, for example, some kind of noise or whiskers, or I don't know, or I don't know, yes. But the identity as a form, as the deeper form, is in the soul. It's in the soul, because the things, the material things can change. Yeah, I can. Indeed, we have seen that every 10 years we renew all our cells, our bones, our flesh, our blood. We renew every 10 years, no? And what is the thing that remain, or identity? It's not the thing that pass, because if that, I will be in 10 years another person. No, it's the identity that is the stable, that is in our soul. So it is quite deep, but in any case, it's just an idea now. To be material, not the body or corporal, that is to have life, to be ephemeral. Yeah, we can die, but what will die? The body, obviously, no? Ephemeral. We have life, the body also, and the body have the integrity of the part. It's not so deep than the unity that we have seen here in number 2. Well, this is in the body, there's a unity, but is called also in the human rights treaties, integrity of the parts. No? To be sexed, we have sex. No? To be perceived and happy. We can say that the action of the human being are also have also some characteristic, stable characteristics, and we will check some of them in this course. But for now, I think that more or less I just answered what kind of rights could be related to directly to the human being, and more or less most of them are the rights mentioned in the core human right treaties, no? Those of the intellect, to the creation, to the expression, and so on. Those of the body, not to torture anyone, well, because the integrality, not to trespass some property rights related to the actions, or life, or some rights related to the sex. Also, well, that will be directly related to the human being rights. So we have seen the first of the objectives of the class, of the lecture of today. Now we will see the war, the Chinese war, and how those rights were affected in this war. But this will be after the break. I don't know if you know something about this war. Probably at least one idea you will have in your mind, but it determined so many things in the world. For sure you will remember, where is China? So easy. In Asia, in this part of the world. And I don't know if you know this. This will be so important to understand how the war evolved in the last century in China. This is the map of population density in China. Now, yes, but more or less it was the same a century ago, more or less, no? As you can see, most of the people live here. Here is also Peking, Beijing, that is the same. Also in the south. In the south, there are two big concentrations of people. Instead of that, you will find not so much people living in these areas, no? In the west part of the country, and in the north, in Manchuria also, are not so many people, well, more or less, here more or less in Wuhan, so famous now because coronavirus, more or less in that place. No? Well, so let's see the map of China in 1860. What's so different? More or less, we have the same China here, the Tibet here, more or less. Here is the Manchuria, remember this name, because there is Korea also. And here was many colonies of the British Empire in the south also. No? So in the Burma, this place, well, all things changed. And of course, you can see here, Japan. So why is it important to see the map 2 centuries ago, more or less? This is because, well, to realize that China was a really great empire for many centuries. One of the ancient cultures that we have now alive began there 21 centuries before Christ. Imagine that, before Christ, no? With the dynasty of Xia. Well, and for centuries, many centuries, more or less 3,000 years, they had the same system, dynasties or hereditary monarchies, but more or less the same. Until the Qing dynasty, the last one of China, because in 1912 there was a big revolution against that dynasty. And after that revolution, there was founded the Republic of China. Remember these words that are involved here, no? Republic of China, ROC. Because after that, there were many problems, no? There was a great party, as many places here in Africa, that is just one party that governs, and also in Mexico, and also in many places around the world. That just party governs the whole system, the whole country, more or less, no? More or less. So what happened with that? That we will see now the map some years before that, some years later. No, this is in the 1929, more or less. So what happened with that? That for sure you remember that the Soviet Empire, more or less the union of countries, of the states that followed communism in the Soviet, well, they had the Bolshevik Revolution at the end of the 19th century, at the beginning also the 20th centuries, with especially that with a huge revolution that killed many people and put a new system in the world, a communist system in which the important thing is not the person but the state. No, more or less the idea that they follow were those ones. No? That the important thing is the state. The state is the whole, no? Important, and for save the whole, well, it doesn't matter if someone have to die, because it's not so important. The individual, the very important thing is the whole, no? Well, more or less, this is one of the key ideas of communism, at least of the first communism that appeared on the world. No? So here in the north, you will find the Soviets. No? But they used to promote their ideas in China after that. So in 1929, there were many people that used to follow, not so many, but some of them, the communist system. And they founded the Chinese Communist Party. So give you more or less the ideas of the numbers, and at the 1922 there were just 300 members of the Communist Party of China. 300 is nothing, no? After 3 years they had 1,500 members of the Chinese, the Communist Party of China. So, and then in 1927, they had 10,000 members, but 10,000 members were, it means it's important, not in the place where most of the people used to live, no? But principally in the deep country, So spread, so great spread, all of them, more or less here. There is also a great population, but more or less, this is the map of 1929. And there was the other party, the Kuomintang party, no? The is the blue one. The Kuomintang party was the party that fought the revolution against the last dynasty of China. It means so many things. It means that they consider that they have the original Republic of China founded in 1912. Okay, with this, so at the very beginning with the communist ideas, there were many people, and also the party that at that time was governing China is the Blue Party, no? The Kuomintang. So at one point, some of them left the party, or the party was split in two, because some of them joined the communist ideas, but the people with the whole power at that point was the party that was governing China at that time, the most powerful party. At that time, they had more or less 50 members, 1,000 members. Remember, this year more or less 50,000 members of the Blue Party, Republic of China.
Like fuck.
Yeah, and so please mute yourself if there is a problem. And the Communist Party at that time, more or less 10,000 people. So it was the biggest party was the blue one, no? So what happened after that? That there were many problems between them. The Soviets support the allies with also with some guns, army, and things, and especially with ideas of how to promote the basic ideas of the communism. So at the very beginning, well, and in this party, more or less, there was the general that is Chiang Kai-shek. This guy was the president, the general of the Blue Party, the man with the whole power in China at that time, that represents the Republic of China, remember. No? So, but there were in those years several problems, and the civil war began. And the civil war, as all things in China, was so long. Even now, there is a kind of war. Even now, imagine that. No? But at the very beginning, it was a matter of who will have the power. The Communist Party was spread around the country, and he decided, well, we have to stop communism because it is against all the rights of the people, and we will not govern in that way. So Chiang Kai-shek decided to attack the places in which the Communist Party have a lot of power. And you can see more or less here, specifically the places, no? The areas controlled by the communists during 1929 to 1935, the first part of the Civil War. There are three parts, remember. The first part is the thing that I'm telling now you. So he attacked to several points the party of the Republic of China, and he won because he had at that time the whole power. Most of the people of the populated part of China, and you can see here that these places, in these places, he won. He won. That's why there is a cross in blue, because it was part of the Soviet supported areas of the Communist Party that were defeated by the Republic of China. So, but what happened in this moment? That one guy appeared, Mao Zedong. At the very beginning was in a lie with champagne and with shale and with some guys, but at the end he was the greatest guy of the party with the whole power. No, but at the very beginning it was nothing. No, it was nothing. He ran with escape properly, escape from Chiang Kai-shek, the Blue Party, in this long journey. You can see the long journey of the escape. I think that now, in one year, he ran 9,000 kilometers with all his troops. Imagine that, no? At the very beginning were so many people, no? Almost 100,000 people. But at the end, they were less than 1,000 people. Well, more or less, I think 7,000 people at the end of this long march, the escape, the great escape, we can say, no? The great escape, where if the party of the government is attacking you in the biggest cities, what you have to do? Well, to go to the west, to the deep of the country, where not many people used to live. So it was the great escape. No? In a simplified way, that is the long march. No, the long march from here and from here and from here and from here. So what happened with this long march? We can say, well, obviously it's an escape, nothing will happen. No, but yes, because he used in that long march, well, some techniques to speak to the people how bad is the government, and to put against the government all the people, and to promote the communist ideas in this sense. For example, this is a picture of the promotion of those ideas in some of those in one of those places, no, in the deep of the China. Well, and promoting that, as you can see, well, what they will find at the end of the journey so many adherents to the Communist Party, and that was so crucial for decide how the civil war of China will end. Because that will give you so much people to fight against the Republic of China. This is the first part of the Chinese Civil War. What happened then in 1935, more or less, and after that? That the Japanese appeared in the north, especially in the north, and then also in the south, trying to conquer China. And they had a great success. Why in the north? Because, well, in the Manchuria, remember this part of the Manchuria, they were not so many people. It was so easy to land there. And then the Manchuria is so close to the principal cities, the most populated cities in China. Here you have Beijing, for example. Peking is the same, as I say. So he decided to, Japan decided to attack China. And at that moment, they decided, both, remember, they were both leaders. Chiang Kai-shek of the Republic of China, and also Mao Zedong of the Communist Party. So at the very beginning, when Japan attacked, they decided to unite the forces of the Red Army and the Blue Army. So you can see here in both photos, historical photos, Chiang Kai-shek in a brindis with Mao Zedong, celebrating the unity of China to fight against the greatest enemies of the China history, that was Japan. And well, they took many photos, as you can see, celebrating. But this was so crucial because it just was a brindis, but with no real agreement. They decided to stop more or less the civil war to fight. But at the end of the day, what happened? The only army that really fight directly against Japan was the army of the government, was the army of Chiang Kai-shek, the man in power of China, of the army, no? And he proposed a great battle in the borders, directly against the armies of the Japanese, no? And what happened with Mao Zedong and the Communist Party? They decided not to attack directly to the Japanese army, but to make a guerrilla in the middle of the city, to put in a hidden way, bombs, to put well, some attacks, but with a lot of cautiousness, nobody seen, a guerrilla attack, no? Not a direct attack with your army, but indirect attack with another kind of strategy, no? And it was so successful for the Chinese Communist Party of China. Why? Why? Because when in a direct attack to the troops of Japan, Chiang Kai-shek lost so many people. And on the other hand, the Red Party lost not so much people with the Japanese, no? And that is the first thing, no? I think that in the second part of the Civil War, that was in the Second World War, well, they lost more or less 6 million people. Most of them of the Blue Party, of the Chiang Kai-shek followers. So it means that he lost, well, principally the whole power for attack, no? And instead of that, Mao Zedong, well, have more or less the same forces, and that's what's the second effect of this strategy of only a guerrilla attack. It was, he gained a lot of fame, of good reputation in those cities. Because in the cities, and remember at that time there were, especially in this part, no television, no radio. Well, some radio could be, but not so well developed. But who were the heroes of that support? Well, the Red Army, no? Because the Blue Army was too far. Nobody knows where they are fighting. You know? We're fighting. But if you see, well, I know this guy, and this guy put a bomb here, and he killed someone. Well, the Chinese Communist Party of China gained a lot of success, a lot of reputation, a lot of adherents during the Second World War because of that, the strategy. And on the other hand, the Blue Army lost many of his greatest people. So after the Second World War, things were absolutely different, no? The Blue Party had less people, and the Republic of China, at the very beginning, in 1947, they tried to attack some of the cities of the conquered by the Mao Zedong, by the Communist Party, but suddenly they realized that they have not so many people, because Mao Zedong was at that point with most of the people. You know? They had an army more than almost 6 million people at that time. Incredible, no? Yeah, well, yeah, and so the Chiang Kai-shek followers decided to escape, to the biggest cities, no? And then the Chinese Communist Party decided to attack them. And they came, and they have success, and that's why they followed to the south. At the very beginning, well, there are some pictures of that battle. The first one that I showed in the north was the battle. Yes, Ali, if you want to.
Yeah. I was just taking clarification. was this battle of April to October 1949 sort of led by Mao Zedong?
It's the continuation of the Civil War that was more or less resumed during the Second World War. But I think that principally, well, there is a lot of things. Principally, it was an attack of Chiang Kai-shek against the Communist parties and some places. Well, and also the Communist parties attacking some cities. More or less two things. There were so many issues with the blockades of each city, but there is a lot of details that is, I think that we can spend the whole day explaining these kind of things. I want to go to the main issues now, but both parties we can say. No? So when Mao Zedong realized that have more or less the control of the main cities, and that Chiang Kai-shek and their troops were escaping, he realized, well, I have to do something. I will proclaim a new republic, the People's Republic of China, in 1949. The People's Republic of China. This is Mao Zedong, and this is the declaration of the new republic, no? And here you have now the map of the escape of Chiang Kai-shek. Chiang proclaimed, well, first from Nanking, he went to the south to Canton, and then to Chengdu. You know, these places he lost many of his armies, and with the people that they have, he moved. They moved to two places: to this island in the south of China, and to the main island of China called Taipei. But in this island, he lost more or less also. He put all of the main part of the troops of the army here in Taipei. And here, the United States support at one point, not at the very beginning, but then yes. And that's why the Chinese, well, Mao Zedong and the Republic, the People's Republic of China stop and never attack that. Here yes, in the south, and that's why now you have two authorities now I'm speaking of today, two authorities that is claiming the whole territory of China. One, this party, Taipei, that is, they say, we are the Republic of China, founded in 1912 here, and we have the right to claim to the whole China. And on the other hand, the communist China that is in this place, the whole this place, claiming that Taipei is part of China. So at the same time that the same year that Mao Zedong proclaimed the Republic, the People's Republic of China, he said, no, the Republic of China, we are Chiang. No? So at the end of the day, the conclusion is this map. You can see China having this, Taiwan, you can see that is another, for many countries, another republic, not so well recognized by many countries. I think that 14 countries recognize Taiwan as a republic, independent of China. Many others have many treaties, once no problem with the biggest one, China. And so, but they are autonomous, more or less, no? With a civil war that now without blood. And that's why and why did China never attack Taiwan? Because the United States got involved here, first in Vietnam and also in South Korea, supporting them, well, against the communism invasion. Well, and this is not. By the way, at that time, the communists took advantage of the non-population of the Chinese people in the Manchuria and took this part for the Union of Soviet nations at that time. Well, this is the map today, and this is things how are going now. What is that important? Because remember, the whole system of the communism is based on the very important thing is the collectivity, the state, not the individual. No, at the very beginning seems to be so good. No, it was incredible because Mao Zedong conquered so many adherents to his party because he said, "Well, I will give you to the peasants, no, some land. So I will take the land from the people with power, the landlords, and I will give you to the peasants, and you will have some place to have your trees, your seeds, your farm, your animals, and that was the great success offering to gain added to the Communist Party. Well, but at the end of the day, it is interesting, no? What things matter in the communist world? The status, as I said, and that's why the regime now, the regime of China is so different of that time of Mao Zedong law regime, because in the at the very beginning, the only people with rights were the authorities. You are an authority, and today more or less the same. No, if you are an authority, you can do anything. No? That's why the most developed law in China is the criminal law and the administrative law, to give all the powers to the authorities, no? to the all kinds of authorities. No? So criminal law is very well developed there, and administrative law, yes, also. Constitutional law, not so much. There is incredible. There is no control of the constitutionality of the laws of the country. Why? Because they want to maintain the power, the authorities, no? in China. No? That's one thing. There is another NGOs around China used to say, well, here are not so right, and there are many things, no, many detentions without trial. Probably they say thousands of prisoners are political prisoners just because political reason. Now we have a problem with the owner of Alibaba, the greatest place in internet in which you can buy, because he said a few days ago something against the government. And now he disappeared. He's disappeared from the map. Forced abortions, forced confessions, torture, these kind of things are usual according to so many NGOs that work more or less there. Many restrictions of fundamental rights and excessive use of death penalty also. So the thing is, there are crazy things in the communist parties also in China. For example, for any decision of the parliament, kind of is the party, no? the whole people vote in the same way. There is always unanimity. Why? Because if not, you can be accused because you are going against the interest of the party. So if you see that someone is voting in some way and the other, you have to vote in the same way, because if not, you will be against the party. And the important thing is the whole, the party, not your idea. If not, I will prosecute you and I will put you in jail. So it is incredible, no? So there is, well, as you can see, many problems in this field of the human rights. But from 1970, there were some reforms, some amendments, also in the Constitution. They are putting, for example, mediation, arbitration, and many things that give some tranquility, some peace for commercial things. No, also this is good for China. Well, in some part of China, there is a kind of free market. In other parts are the communist system, absolutely. But in some parts, you can see a kind of free market, really. And now they have a lot of well, obviously, a censorship of political speech. No? You can see also that in Google, internet, no? If you put in Google something, in China will never appear. Also, for example, in the Catechism of the Church, of the Catholic Church in China, published there, have some pages in white, that never never shows the thing written on the Catechism, because they consider that it is against the Chinese Communist Party. So the one who really govern there is the Chinese Communist Party, no? And if you are against that, well, you will be in jail, no? So it's, as you can see, well, there is a lot of development now, because the authorities say you have to do that, all people have to do that, no matter of the amount of the salary of the people. It's so cheap there. You have only to be an authority and you can do anything. No? And now they had a lot of development. No? A lot of development. It's the country that produce more in any sense in the world. Computers, clothes, anything. No? With the biggest producer of the world from 10 years ago until now, I think so. Well, in many places the level of life is so high, but with a lot of restrictions, have many rights. Well, this is more or less China. I think that it is important to realize that what things they lost with this system. You know? They are trying little by little to approach to recover the sense of person, the sense of person. The important thing is not the mere relation with the whole. The important thing is the person related with the whole. Yeah, that is the principal idea here. That's why we have to take care of that, you know, of the rights of the person, you know, the right, but what it means, so many things we will see. Not to lose the person in the whole. That is the temptation of many totalitarian governments. That's why after that battle, I think that it's great to understand Juan and how things are going there, and some part of the why human rights never work in China is because that the conception, no? And why are there many complaints, concerns in China with the NGOs, but we can understand now the causes of those problems. No? So let's talk about now about the personal rights and some rights related to the intellect. And this will be more or less, you have in the code detailed explanation of each one of them. I will check just a few of them very fast, because we will need a whole class for each one. No? In this second part of the course of human rights, we will see one by one the most important human rights, and that's why I will continue now with the code. With the code, for sure you will see this. By the way, here, guy, you have to help me admitting people. I'm continuously admitting. Let me see. Our participants are here. Yeah. Okay. Okay, perfect. So the same, do you have here the same code? I'm putting also the version in Spanish in the same document because it helped me. But in any case, you can read very well the version. First characteristic of the act of being of the person. This is properties of the being of the human person. We can say of the person. No, is to be caused, being caused, and with meaning, with a sense in our life. No, so the meaning in our life. So the first thing that we can realize in ourselves, and this is so important, is that we are not cause of ourselves. Someone caused us. And that means a lot, because the most important thing for us is that we are part of a history. The ones who cause us is the reason also of our existence, give us a reason to live, a reason to live. So you can see that who caused ourselves? Well, the sustainer of the being, the sustainer of the existence of ourselves, that is God. Our parents also, our family also, the whole family, our grandparents, or grand-grandparents, and so on. And finally, also the environment in some sense, no? Because we live here and we are fed by the environment, and all the, obviously, just in the corporeal sense, the environment is cause of ourselves also. But this is quite interesting, no? With all of these subjects, God, the family, and environment also, we maintain certain relationships, a personal relationship with the things, with those who are person, no? And this marks also the most important things of ourselves, no? Who we are. Well, we can see who we are in our last name, no? The given name of our fathers, no? Fathers, parents, or origin. So we can see, this is quite deep. Let's take care of this. According to the intensity of dependence, human relationships are in their order: the personal relationship and non-personal with the object. In the personal, first with God, second with our family, parent-child relationship, and then family, then friendship, business, social, and community. And after that, the humanity, the whole humanity. This is quite important to know. The relation with the humanity is a relation of family. It's a family relation. A family. The whole humanity is part of our family. This is quite interesting to know. No? That's why we can speak about fraternity. No? We can call truly that all of the people are brothers. No? The fraternity of the French Revolution is real. It's not a metaphor. But, the origin gives sense. No? The cause of ourselves gives sense. No? Then we talk about the unity in the order. You can read these kind of things. No? The unity first of the act of being that unites the body and the soul and the person. But also the principle of unity is that the persons is the deepest unity, no? And the person unifies also himself, the spiritual powers, with their operative principles, habits, and acts. I'm putting here. No? What it means is so easy. If I'm teaching, I am teaching because I am one. No, I unite my actions, my behavior with myself. And that's why I can be responsible of that. No, it is more or less the idea. And the person can unite also, unifies many things also, the assets, the goods, the society. This is the foundation of the integrity of the body, you know, the unity of the person. That's why we can talk about the inviolability of the human person. We cannot violate, trespass, divide, split the person into also, nor the intelligence, nor the, well, all things should be a unity. It's a very abstract theoretical discourse, this one, but it will help, for example, for understand the social unity. The social unity is a second unity. You have to protect first the unity of the person, and then the unity of the associations, and then the unity of the society, the community. And, well, more or less, these have many effects. No? So then dignity. Well, we have seen also in jurisprudence what it means dignity, measurable value that so high is so high that we cannot speak about value and call it value, but dignity. So it will find many other things, that is the notion of honor, reputation, also fame, good name, and many other things. We will see these kind of things with more detail in 5 weeks, more or less. Here is just a hint, a first idea. So the person is subsistent and can grow, can improve, well, is immortal also. The superabundance, well, the creation. Remember, the act of being is not just existence, it's act that can activate, that can create, that can promote, and that is innovative, over abundant. But it's so deep this, but in any case, that explains many things. First, why the person is unrepeatable. Each individual is different, and you have to protect the individuality. We'll see how to protect it in the next week. Well, freedom. Freedom is impossible to explain without this creativity and the manifestation of the person. The interiority is the right to privacy, also protected. You will read about how the human rights protects privacy in the readings of this week. well, and principally the sense of the meaning of the human life, not to donate ourselves, for self-donation, and to receive, to donate and to receive people, principally, This is one of the aims, the coexistence with the things, with the universe, with the cosmos, with the person. It means so much. Things. Let's see. Well, I can put, let me see how we are. Yeah, in each, in each one of these topics, we can see so many things. And you will see many things in the readings. But now I want to share you something. Let me see. You will read in the limit 12 to 62, 63 to 72. So let's speak. Let's talk about privacy, more or less. The human rights treaties and in the constitutions around the world, you have just a few words about privacy, the right to privacy. No one shall be subject to arbitrary interference with this privacy. And then many things. This is just a few words. The sole word privacy many times. This once again the International Covenant for Civil and Political Rights. Say, no one shall be subjected to arbitrary or unlawful interference with his privacy. So, what it means? Well, there are many aspects in the jurisprudence of the human rights that develop the right to privacy. Most of the times, great jurisprudence. Some other times, not so well developed. For example, with the right to privacy, courts in the United States specifically, and some courts of Europe and some said, well, are protected, obviously, the intimacy, the privacy of the family, the privacy of the companies. That is not so easy to understand, but also, well, the right to abortion. The judgment of the United States that approves abortion was based on privacy, precisely because, well, I can do whatever I want in my private sphere. The great question is there. You can kill in your private sphere. No, so it is not. Things that have to be with life is not a matter of privacy. So you have to decide if there is a human being that you have to protect or not. If there, well, not in private, not in public, you cannot kill anyone. If there is no human right, well, privacy doesn't matter. So, yeah, because you can do whatever you want with, because there is no human there. Yeah, I think that there is a human and you cannot kill anyone in private space. So this most of the countries never follow that approach. Some of them, as I said, yes, but they want to justify abortion. They put any kind of other argument that privacy is not so clear. Privacy also covers the protection against the surveillance programs, so developed around the world, especially after the issue of the Twin Towers, in the United States. After that, the government approved the Patriot Act that allows to the government to control anything, not to put snippets in the nodes of the connection of internet, and with that they can spy, or any email, for example, one email say, I will put a bomb, they will check. The FBI and many organizations around the United States, even around the world, will check all these kind of things, all these kind of message, will prosecute you if they consider that could be necessary. So there is no privacy after the Twin Towers issue. And the protection of family is also covered, clearly covered by the right to privacy, protection of home. There is another, the protection of private correspondence. Also, no? Well, there is a problem with terrorism. It is an interesting case. I read this in Spain, the jurisprudence of Spain, that is quite interesting, but more or less you can find the same cases around the world. There should be a balance between the right of expression, of privacy, the obligation of transparency, and many issues. And there were a case of a prison that decided to control, to surveillance all the inmates. That is to say that there will be always a guard hearing and seeing all the things that the prisoners say to the visitors. Well, there is a time and a place for visits in any jail, prison, but in this specifically place, well, and they say we have to check all the conversations, all the things that you are seeing, saying, seeing, changing with your visitors. No? So they asked to the Constitutional Court of Spain and say, well, we have the right to privacy. I don't know what you will resolve if you were the Constitutional Court of Spain. Who will win, the prisoners or the guards? Well, this will be not so clear many times. No. We can say, yes, Adi.
I had a question. Would we say that the right to privacy is a limited right? Is the state in itself morally obligated at times to infringe into a right to privacy for the greater interest of the whole society in acquiring evidence?
Yes, I would say that. Yeah, we will see the category of limited rights in the next lecture. But yes, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so the court said, you're right, prisoners. You have the right to privacy also in prison. So the guards cannot check you. So, well, that was so clear at that time. But there were so many cases after that. One of them was a case sued by also some other jail, in which they have terrorists. With terrorists, it's not so easy because they are very risky prisoners. Many times the terrorists used to kill also the guards, asking to the visitor, well, this guard was not so good guy for me, so he have to. So they say, well, in this case we have to check. I will obey your judgment about we cannot control, but in this case, yes. And the terrorists sue sued against the jail and the Constitutional Court. What they said? What do you think? They said that, well, in this case, the guards have reason. So the guards can control, put a kind of surveillance to these specific risky prisoners. And they were allowed to do that, no? But there was a third case that is also with a terrorist. They say, well, I know that I'm so risky because my community used to kill people, no? But in any case, I think that I have the right to privacy in some cases. In which cases? When my visitor is my lawyer. With my lawyer, I have not just the right to privacy, but also the right to defend my interest. There are things that I will say just to my lawyer, not to all people. And if a guard is hearing me, they will accuse me because he didn't. So I think that that I have that right. And the Constitutional Court accept that claim of the terrorist. Say, well, you can be controlled, have a lot of surveillance, but when the visitor is the lawyer, there should be a right to privacy. So as you can see, the right to privacy is, well, it depends, no? There are, we can say, a cone of information, no? This is the theory of the cone of secrets. And there are so many informations quite in the heart of the people and are more exposed to the society, no? We can divide, no? Privacy is related to the information that is more close to the people, no? And there is a public forum. In the public forum, well, we have no that kind of right to privacy. It's just, and you can see, for example, that, well, this could be a whole lecture, no? Just to explain the theory of the cone of secrets. I will explain just two lines here. No? Well, the most important part is the intimacy. Intimacy is not an English word, but it's more common in French, in Spain. But in any case, the most protected secrets of each person pertains to the intimacy of the person, we can say, no? So it means so many things. It means, I'm going very fast. It will be not part of the quizzes, by the way, but it's more or less an approach to the theory of the secrets. In the private space, the general rule is the secret, as you can see here. The privacy is in the private forum. And in the public forum, the general rule is the publicity, the transparency. The state is here. The general rule is here in the state. You have to be transparent in the state. In your company, not absolutely, but in your family, absolutely. You have more secrets. And with the lawyers, there are so deep secrets, especially two. The lawyer's secret, that is called a privilege in the Anglo-Saxon world, and also the privilege of the confession of the priest, because we are saying there things that, well, have to be with conscience. Then, deception is precisely the contrary. The publicity, if someone wants to surveil you and to check you and to see what things, well, if you are in the private forum, well, you have to have an order of a judge to check yourself, no? You, if not, it will be not possible. Deception in the general, in the public forum, in the county, for example, is the secret. Induyo pro secretum and pro informatione. Induyo and pro secretum, in case of doubt, you have to consider that something is secret in the private form, and on the other hand, in the public form, the rule is the contrary. All things that should be showed, and if you have any doubt, should be showed. Well, there is many things in the theory of the secrets, but it's just an approach. Okay. Well, the right to development. You will read about this case. You will read about this case, the Ndoro's case, because it happened here. No, you have an explanation, little explanation in this case in the reading. So, but we have no time now to consider this. No? But this is the right of development that is in the code also. No, the code is in a very theoretical way explained. We have to develop our mind, or habits, or behavior, or relations, and this is the culture. No? Yeah, for sure you will remember this case that was not so long ago here in Kenya. And finally, I want to say something about, and I want to ask you, which right do you think that can be related to the intellect? We have seen the rights of the person, of the notion of person, of act of being. And now, which rights are related to the intellect? What do you think? Can you say me, yes, Ali, at least one?
One. Oh, okay. Intellectual rights.
Intellectual property, of course, yes. The things that we create are related. But yes, intellectual property. Any other right related to the intellect? Lavender, yes.
Hi.
Hi.
I think rights to academic freedom and artistic creativity.
Right to academic freedom and artistic, yeah, develop, yeah, to develop everything in the intellect. I cannot develop. Which other right could be related to the intellect? Yes, Bill.
Do we place copyrights in this?
Yeah, that is part of the intellectual property. Well, any other? I will give you a list. Obviously, yes.
I might be very wrong, but I think the freedom of expression might fall into this category.
Yeah, no, I agree absolutely with you. It's related. Obviously, freedom of expression, many rights are not related just with the intellect, but with the intellect and with some other things. Yeah, because the expressions could be also expression of the body, but also the expression of what we think, what we have in our minds, yeah, what we believe, for example, no? But principally, the intellect is related to the truth. If there is no truth, there is no sense of the intellect. Yeah. It's not just to talk about anything that could be not true. If there is no truth, any conversations makes no sense at all. Now, why we talk with our friends, for example, because we want to know things, no? If I know that a friend is a liar, that always will lie me, well, I will not believe him, and I will lose the interest to talk with him. Well, there should be the truth. There should be the truth. And in some sense, we have the right to the truth. This is the deepest, I think, the deepest right related to the intellect, no? The right to the truth. Obviously, no one have the absolute truth, but we can put the means, and we have the right to put the means to find the truth. It means so many things. It means, for example, here you can include the right to education. The education, why education makes sense? Because we can accept that we can know the truth. If we can know the truth, we should educate people with the truth. If not, education makes no sense at all. Freedom of thought also, no? Freedom of thought it's related to the principal aim of this. Is there any limit? What is freedom of thought? Well, I can think about it in anything that I want. What do you think? Is there any limit of the freedom of thought or not? Many people, well, I'm taking advantage of the question of Ali, that say there are limited rights, and we can say absolute rights also. No? Absolute rights are that never see it, never with any circumstance, that always you should grant this right, that these are the absolute rights. In some countries, people say, no, there is no absolute rights. No, I know many countries in South America that say that. No? On the other hand, some international human rights court say, well, there are some absolute rights. For example, the right not to be tortured, we have seen in the last lecture. What do you think? Freedom of thought is an absolute right or not? Have no limit, or it is a limited right? Or yes, Ali.
I'd say that everyone first has the right to freedom of thought individually, possessing or protecting their belief systems, opinions, as well as to practice or express them individually or collectively. But there is a limitation to the extent that it goes to hate speech and incitement, where that freedom of thought is creating a form of with the public interest.
Yeah. So it means that yes and no. Joseph. Yes, Joseph.
Can you hear me? Yes, well, my thinking is everyone has freedom of thought. However, the problem only comes when you're putting the thought to action.
Exactly.
That's where the limitation. That's where the limitation comes.
Yeah.
Because if that thought results to an action that will affect the general good negatively, then that thought has to be limited.
Yeah. Okay. I agree absolutely with that idea. We can say, and the courts related to human rights used to say that freedom of thought is an absolute right when it's just freedom of thought, when it's just things that we have in our mind, okay? That's only there. But when there is a manifestation of those thoughts, well, there could be some limitations, because, well, the same example that you say, well, there could be hate speech and many things that you have to limitate. But what it means that it's an absolute right when just ideas are in our minds. Well, that obviously you cannot put substance to any people to obtain their thoughts. You cannot hypnotize someone to give some ideas. For example, you are a bird. Yeah, obviously not, because we have freedom of thought. In this sense, it's an absolute right. On the other side. So Ali mentioned something about the freedom of belief and religion. It's not exactly the same as freedom of thought. There is a difference here. And also, there is well, some faculties we will see in 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I think so. There is a difference between freedom of belief and freedom of conscience and freedom of opinions. Many people used to put together all of them, even some declarations of human rights, but they are not the same. Which is the difference? I don't know if you imagine which could be the difference. No? I will say, because we have not so much time now, but try to think about later the faculties. No? Freedom of belief is the thing that we don't know, but we want to believe. There is an act of the will. We want, no? Because why? Because we want. Many times the will convince, in some sense, the intellect to believe in something. In freedom of opinion, just think about our beliefs, strong beliefs. We defend them. We defend them, and we think that are true. That God exists. It's true for us, or not. No, it's our belief. No? But in our opinions, there is a doubt. We say, well, my opinion, this thing is this, but could be different. It could be different. It's not such a strong belief, yeah, of the opinion. It's what we thought, what we think about something that could be different. And finally, freedom of conscience. What is freedom of conscience? Is related to our conscience could be based on religion, could be based also on our opinions, but is different because freedom of conscience is a practical judgment. A practical judgment that says that an action is good or is wrong. There is two options. That is good, well, probably, or it doesn't matter. It also, but these are practical judgments of the good things or bad things of our action or the action of the other people. So this is very specific thing. Well, okay. I think that we are at the end